Hey everybody, Dr. Phil here. So this is going to be a video on consumer behavior. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So the first thing we'll talk about is a little more about understanding consumer behavior. So there's really two fields. We have B2C marketing and then we have what we call B2B marketing. So think about B2C marketing, business to consumer. That's all the stuff that they're targeting us as the final consumers. But think about all the things, all the entities, retailers, wholesalers, distributors that those products have to go through in order to even get to us. So all these different businesses, that's where the bottom one comes in, business to business marketing, right? Because, you know, all the way through that value chain, all those different entities, suppliers, wholesalers, again, intermediaries, distributors, et cetera. The list is endless. They all have to market to each other, right? They're all each other's customers and vendors, depending on, where you are in that value chain, in that supply chain. So B2B marketing is, every bit as essential and important as business to consumer marketing. So traditional perspectives on consumer decision making. So traditional views of decision making portray a fully informed consumer following a logical step-by-step deliberation. But notice that's traditional views, right? So is that really the case? A lot of times no, because let's be honest, people make impulse buys all the time. So the modern focus incorporates emotion into the reasoning process, right? Really, like thinking fast and thinking slow is sort of a good way to distill this down. So system one is an automatic, non-conscious way of thinking, which is sort of thinking fast. System two, the slow thinking, is an effortful, slow, and controlled way of thinking. We may come back to that more a little bit. There's maybe some other things I want to kind of add on to something else I want to talk about later in the video. So you may see those again. All right, so the consumer decision-making process. So step one, problem recognition. What need do I have to satisfy? Well, I need a new car. My car's, you know, conked out. Step two, information search. What products are available to satisfy my needs? So I may get online, look at local dealerships, used car lots, so on and so forth. Step three, alternative evaluation. Which product will best satisfy my need? So that's going to depend on what you like, what your needs are. Well, I want a sunroof. I want, this. I want that. Um, Step four, outlet selection and purchase. Where should I purchase from and how much should I pay? So maybe I want to go to the dealer. Maybe I want to go to CarMax. Maybe I just want to go to Carvana and they deliver it to my house, right? What's my budget? Um, and then step five, the post-purchase processes, excuse me. Am I satisfied with my purchase? And that way, maybe you can leave a review. So the information search, what alternative solutions exist? What are the appropriate criteria for evaluating the solutions? Again, as you read through these, thinking about the car example I just gave you, how well does each solution perform on each evaluative criteria? And then we're going to narrow down our choices to what we call an evoked set. So don't really worry about that term evoked set. No one's going to use that in the real world. Just think about these three things and then think about, okay, at the end of it, I should have like taken my list of choices down to kind of like, funneled or like whittled them down to a much narrower set. So sources of information, I can maybe able to get information internally, you can certainly get it externally. I may be able to get it from personal sources, friends, independent sources, experiential, possibly company originated sources. Again, obviously, for most of us, the internet's where we're going to start. We might look on social media. But most of us are probably just going to go to Google, right, and just type in what it is we're looking for, maybe type that in, and then type in the term reviews after it to see what other people are saying about it. So we can use a set of evaluative criteria, and that of course is going to be a little different, for each of us. My evaluative criteria and yours will probably be different, right? Because we're looking for different things. So it may be an attribute-based choice. Well, I want one with a car with a sunroof. An effective choice, maybe an attitude-based choice. Maybe attitude-based more if it's like a luxury item. And then marketing tactics for influencing buyer evaluation. So things like fuel efficiency. Obviously, there's been last probably few years, maybe decade or so, there's been a big push for like hybrid and of course EVs, electric vehicles. And then outlet selection and purchase. So factors include the store location or convenience, the price, obviously. Um, we certainly care about the price, merchandise quality and selection, and more. And these could be unplanned purchases, it could be reminder purchases. A lot of times they're impulse purchases. And then of course there is a plethora of ways to pay, right? You got credit cards, you've got Apple Pay, you've got Samsung Pay. You can probably pay cash, although some places now don't take cash. Most places still do. Um, Debit cards, obviously, you could write a check if you want to. There's a whole obviously there's a ton of ways to pay, right? And then post-purchase evaluation. So thoughts and feelings about a purchase will affect whether consumers become repeat buyers. You may run into some buyer's remorse, especially on those impulse purchases. Well, I really didn't need that. Yeah, it satisfied me in the short term, but in the long run, I wish I hadn't spent the money on this. So a lot of companies will do things like free trials, like SiriusXM. Obviously that comes in a lot of cars as you'll get like say like a 12-month or a 6-month subscription for free. That's built into the price of the car. And it's designed to try to combat that sort of buyer's remorse, if you will. And then culture. Norms are formal or informal societal rules. So society, cultures have their kind of like cultural norms. So violations of cultural norms can result in sanctions or penalties by other members of society. And obviously, there's differences in national cultures, right? Some cultures are more individualistic, probably in the Western world, we're more individualistic. And then collectivism, like the Asian and Oriental cultures tend to be more collectivist, more familial, if you will. And culture, of course, is dynamic and is certainly multifaceted. It doesn't, things don't change overnight. It takes time to change. It changes slowly. Um, but obviously, current events and global changes can lead to more rapid changes among key subpopulations. So think about, any like serious, notable world events. Think about how, those have affected cultures around the world, really, really over a millennia. And we also have subcultures. We could have subcultures for consumption. We could have, brand communities, consumer tribes. These are all things that, like the Star Wars fans. There's, the people that really like Star Wars, the Star Trek. Just thinking about some of the sci-fi stuff, Deep Space Nine. And there's whole cultures and there's whole consumer cultures built around these tribes, if you will. And there's also, this is an interesting one, country of origin effects. Like you notice that we've got BMW and Mercedes, obviously German, right? Germans probably, well, they are the best engineers in the world. There's no question about that. Um, but people like to say they have a German car, right? It comes with a bit of prestige, bit of acclaim. People like, oh, like, look at that person driving that fancy car, right? So, it's there's also sort of like a signaling aspect to it too. And then social factors. Yeah, influenced by our social network. You've probably heard of this term of like, everything is sort of separated by, no more than 6 degrees. That's the idea of this 6 degrees of separation. There could also be, yeah, familial influences. So, children's influence on family purchases. So, the parents might, you're on a road trip, parents say, well, want to eat healthy. The kids are, crying for McDonald's. So the parents just acquiesce and say, fine, you know what, if it shut you up, we'll go to McDonald's. And of course, the parents end up eating too. So, and marketers are well aware of this, right? Like they know that it's worth getting the kids on board because the kids have a lot of influence on family spending patterns. And of course, personality. That's another important one, right? We define personality more formally, as sort of a formal definition, as the set of distinctive characteristics in thinking, feeling, and behaving that lead an individual to respond in a consistent way to certain situations. Lifestyle, of course, person's typical way of life as expressed by their activities, interests, and opinions. Um, this is often emphasized by companies like, as it says, Patagonia, J. Crew. Patagonia is, of course, that's it's sort of an ethos, it's a creed, it's not just I mean, yeah, obviously it's the merchandise they're selling, but they're also selling, this is a very distinct what way of life, way of thinking, a credos, if you will, and that's sort of synonymous with their products. And values. So values are defined as a consumer's belief that a specific behavior is socially or personally preferable to another behavior. So marketers can design appeals and messaging aimed at demonstrating the brand's compatibility with these consumer values. So, like, yeah, Toyota's "Start Your Impossible" campaign would be a perfect example of that. And obviously, in the wider scheme of things, sustainability has become and is continuing to become a bigger deal as we think about the natural resources on the planet that are being depleted. Yeah, so this is a good continuum because it kind of shows this idea of low involvement versus high involvement purchases. So low involvement, inexpensive, frequently purchased, you run by the gas station, put, I don't know, $50 of gas in your tank. You don't really have to think about it. You're like, oh, I'm low on gas, let me go do that. Um, not really any risk to that. And then high involvement purchases. So these are going to be like the houses, the cars, again, expensive, seldom purchased, so not purchased very often. You got to do some research. You don't just walk out one day and immediately go buy the first house you see, right? You do some research about the area, the schools, stuff like that. And of course, it's more risky, right? You could buy a house. Next thing you know, the interest rates go way up and property values come way down. And the next thing you know, you could be upside down in your house. And then the other thing I wanted to mention just quickly in this video, I kind of touched on this at the beginning. I did sort of say we'd probably come back to this, was this idea of B2B marketing because no one really thinks about B2B marketing. All we see as like final end consumers, as the final consumers is of course B2C, right? Business to consumer. But we got to understand that B2B marketing is important and it's pervasive and it consists of marketing to organizations that acquire goods and services in the production of other goods and services that are then sold or supplied to others. So kind of a wordy definition there. I'm not sure that makes a whole lot of sense, but just think about it like you've got, business A, business B, business C, final consumer, right? So business A and B, there's marketing going on there, right? Business B and C, marketing going on there. And then say, well, I guess A and B, and then yeah, A to B, and then B to C, and then C to the final consumer, that would be the business to consumer, right? So what we're seeing on the B2C end is sort of like the very end of that chain, if you will. Okay, as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you all in a future video.